Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again. This week we are covering minute 6, and that must mean that I've managed to stop rambling about strange loops long enough to jump back into mine. I'm Professor Robert E.G. Black, and this is the Groundhog Day Project.
It's like we're stuck. You know, like a needle on a scratch record.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
It's a thing where the same day keeps happening?
I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd.
Time. I promise to explain everything later, but I need you to trust me.
Slow down! What are you, in a damn time loop or something?
Minute 6 begins inside the Channel 9 news van, Larry driving, Phil in the front passenger seat, Rita in the jump seat behind them. We're in a two-shot, Phil and Rita. Phil's head is turned to his left, our right, only barely getting him a view of Rita. On his commentary track, Ramus says here,
and Andy McDowell we hired on the basis of a wonderful movie that not too many people saw called Object of Beauty, a film made by British director Michael Lindsay Hogg. I'd liked her in her other stuff, but she was really wonderful in Object of Beauty. It's a John Malkovich film.
Rita's doing her groundhog impression, both hands in front of her, fingers curled in a visual approximation of pause. Rita, and he looks around. On cue, Phil looks around, slowly turning away from Rita and closing his eyes. The movie didn't need Stephanie DeCastro and her Witchcraft for Dummies spellmaking. This scene, right here, is the spell. He wrinkles up his little nose. She wrinkles up her little nose, her eyes all but closed. Continuing the reading of this scene as the spell that puts Phil in the place of the groundhog, I made the argument more than once in my blog, and will make the argument at some point later in this podcast for sure, that Larry is a sort of proto-phil. He fails to seduce Nancy Taylor where Phil had previously succeeded. He jumps on stage to be auctioned after Phil has just been bought for far too much money, and he's just as sarcastic as Phil is, but not as charming. He is Phil's shadow, almost as much as Punxsutawney Phil is, an echo of some of his darker aspects that need to be tempered. Here, Rita says this pair of lines. He sees his shadow, he doesn't see his shadow, and Phil turns his gaze away from Rita, past Larry, who remains out of frame. And he closes his eyes, refusing the vision of the guy who he probably does not want to admit how much they have in common in their behavior. He Sees His Shadow was the title of Groundhog Day Project blog, day 245, 3rd April 2014. He Doesn't See His Shadow was the title of day 823, 2nd November 2015. Phil slowly turns his head back to the side just enough to see Rita. She's leaning forward between the seats. Second 5, she puts her hand on Phil's seat, and she makes eye contact. It's nice. People like it. She is telling Phil what he needs to do, what he needs to be, and he is not getting the message. And I'm not even sure that she realizes she is sending it. Phil, you are new, aren't you? That was the title of day 77, 17th October 2013. Phil turns his head away faster this time, glancing out the passenger side window. Then, abruptly, he turns back to look at Rita. You know, people like blood sausage, too. Middle of Phil's line, we cut to Larry. A great reaction of disgust at... Is it the mention of blood sausage that he finds so reprehensible in this moment? Or is he seeing just how awful Phil can be when positioned so close to lovely Rita, segment producer? Phil is out of the shot. Rita would be too, except her left hand is at the edge of the frame, resting on Larry's seat. Phil continues. People are morons. You know, people like blood sausage too. People are morons. Was the title of day 105, 14th November 2013. Larry turns his attention to the road ahead and goes back to chewing his gum. We cut back to the two-shot of Phil and Rita, second 14. Phil looks up at the out-of-frame sun visor. Rita sees him for who he is. Larry sees him for who he is. Phil, maybe he sees who he is, but he wouldn't know yet what to do about it, even if he could admit that who and what he is, well, bad. Phil reaches up to pull down the visor to reveal the mirror. To himself and to Rita, not to us. We're on the wrong side of that visor, and surely we can already see who Phil is. Rita, nice attitude. Looking at himself in that mirror, I swear the eyeline really feels like Murray, Connors, is looking at himself, not at Rita. One hand on the edge of the visor like he might have to close it quickly if seeing his own reflection is too much to handle. Phil, I want you to look in the mirror. Rita immediately moves her eyes to see the mirror. And see what you look like when you do that little groundhog thing. Look in the mirror and see what you look like was the title of Day 11, 12th August 2013. He wrinkles up his nose, showing off his upper teeth. He is taking part in the ritual of this spellcasting by symbolically becoming the groundhog. Okay? Rita's work here is done, and she might not even consciously know it. She diverts her eyes from the mirror first, then she smiles, then she sits back, her eyes directed forward toward the road, toward the future, or maybe angled a little toward Larry out of frame, like the ritual has begun. For me, once, as Phil's hands go up for his own version of groundhog paws, Rita lets loose her grip on Phil's chair. The loop is cooking. He comes out. Rita can't help but look Phil's direction again. And this one almost feels like McDowell being amused more than Rita being amused. And there he looks at his little shadow. He drops his hands back out of frame, stops sprinkling his nose, but his pseudo-groundhog teeth baring remains momentarily like a grimace. He's caught a glimpse of his own awfulness in the mirror, surely. He knows something is coming. And you can be sure he was just looking at himself, too, because he raises his hand to the visor again and specifically turns his eyes so that he can see Rita in the mirror. That last mockery wasn't really for her, but he shifts into asshole mode, stacking a little more sarcasm onto this display. Would you like some blood sausage? He takes his hand away from the visor and reaches down to the glove compartment below frame. I have some here in the glove compartment. Rita is answering him already before he has even finished this line.
Would you like some blood sausage? I have some here in the glove compartment.
I like blood sausage.
She can keep up with his shtick. Rita, I like blood sausage. Phil doesn't buy it, but he puts the visor back up, looks to the side, toward Larry, and the movie cuts away. Second 32. Exterior, van, Blairsville, Pennsylvania. This right here is the closest the movie gets to the actual Punxsutawney. The van exits 22 east toward 119 north for Marchand and Punxsutawney, which means they took a different route than I described a few episodes ago, but the distances are comparable, 85 miles instead of the 80 I suggested. This exit circles around to the right, south, and then goes under 22 to head north. The music comes back up in volume. The van we can see now is a Dodge Ram, license plate 158A2-CE. Hard to find confirmation, but presumably that CE ending is similar to a PCE or PCI plate that can be seen in many film and TV productions today. The armor truck later in the film is license plate 265G9-CE. The Internet Movie Car Database says this is a 1991 Dodge Ram van, which means it is brand new within the film and a year old at time of production. Continuity note, the WPBH decal on the passenger side of the van is quite close to the windows, the same place it was in the wide shot last minute. Lyrics. They say it's gone. A station wagon, a 1985 Chevrolet Caprice Classic according to imcdb.org, follows behind the news van a little too closely. Say winter's done. Second 38, we are in Algonquin, Illinois. The van heads left to right, south on Main Street where it intersects with Arrowhead Drive. A blue van waits at the stop sign to come onto Main. Camera pans with the news van as it passes. Continuity note. The WPBH decal is about centered between the back of the van and the windows, actually a little closer to the rear. As I had a war with the IMDb Goofs page in my blog, it is worth noting that this is not necessarily a continuity problem, because the decal could be a magnetic thing easily shifted when they, for example, stop for gas between moments we see. Blurred in the background is 901 Cary Road, which at the time was some sort of restaurant. Don't know the name. More recently, it was the Fantasy Festival Costumes and Magic Center, which would have been really appropriate. But that has itself closed permanently, not sure when. The building, built in 1950, is 7,000 square feet, and as of 24th May 2019 was available for $280,000. So, if you're looking for a little commercial space in Algonquin, Illinois, that don't mean a thing. The van passes the Punxsutawney billboard, and we linger on the billboard. The van, of course, is visible beneath the billboard, quite small, disappearing behind a hill. Ryan Gilby says the van is dwarfed by it. Phil doesn't stand a chance. He means the billboard, not the hill. Because I'm the one. If you're listening to this show, Surely you have at least a vague memory of the style of this billboard, if not its details. A cartoony Punxsutawney Phil at the left edge of billboard overhanging the edge, wearing a fedora, an umbrella tucked under his right arm, a newspaper under his left arm. The headline, Weather for Today. Welcome to, in cursive, Punxsutawney shaped out of logs. Banner under that says, in quotes, the original weather capital of the world since 1887. There's a cartoony layout of the town square, but only half of it, really. The Pennsylvania Hotel on the left, the courthouse up to the right, Gobbler's Knob, complete with its own sign, including Punxsutawney Phil in miniature. If only there were a tiny news van on that billboard. And the gazebo. No sign of the second, smaller gazebo that is in the quarter of the square we never actually see in the film, and no sign of any building at all on the right side of the image. Like Punxsutawney is cut off from the rest of reality. The van disappears behind a hill to the right, and there is nothing to the right on the billboard. Another banner at the bottom of the billboard lists Gobbler's Knob, food and lodging, pop 6,782. Beneath the billboard, across the way, stone pillars frame the driveway into the 901 property. We can see lit up signs that say restaurant and lounge. On Google Earth Street View, this driveway is overgrown and the pillars are hidden among tree branches. At the time of filming, there don't seem to be any trees anywhere near those pillars.
Most of life is just junk, right? It's filler. And then there's these moments.
It's a perfect day. You couldn't have planned a day like this.
Well, you can. It just takes an awful lot of work.
When all the randomness turns into something perfect. It's like life's dropping all the bullshit just for a second to show us how amazing it could be all the time if it wanted to.
I don't know. I think maybe we're supposed to become like better people. Though I honestly don't even know how that could be possible.
Whoa, now. Sounds like someone's got a case of the time loop blues.
Ever think about it? We must miss so many of them. All those tiny perfect things are just poof, gone. Lost forever. But not today.
You can make right what once went wrong.
That is a disturbingly inspirational idea, Mark.
I know, but what is this? Some kind of time loop like a gypsy curse? Is the universe giving us a cosmic test, or am I just going fucking crazy?
Time.
The last revision is what counts, apparently.
What if we found them all? All the perfect things in this one town, in this one day. We could collect them.
Before we finish out the minutes, a little bit on a time loop of the week, which is Star Trek Prodigy, the entire series. Because, structurally, and thematically, and explicitly, the show is about completing a loop in time. Season 1, they know at some point in the future, the proto-star got sent back in time, it crash-landed on Teslamora, and that's what brings our main characters together when they escape the sort of prison place where the ship is, and go on their adventure. That was Season 1. In Season 2, getting to where the protostar was sent from, they realize it got sent to the wrong place, and that's a problem because time starts breaking down. If they don't complete the loop, specifically, Gwyn will never be born, because she was only born because her father was working with finding the protostar and engineered her to be born.
Erased from existence.
It's complicated. But the fun part is that toward the end, they are not sure when the ship arrived in Teslamora. They just know it was eventually there for it to be found. They don't know when it arrived. And they need to know that for a math calculation when they're trying to send it back again. Until Rock realizes they always assumed it got sent back the first time and went to the right place. But what if this is what always happened? It always got sent back to that weird island with Chakotay, and then they came and got it from him and sent it back again. And so their calculation doesn't need that completed end because whenever they send it to is when it was originally sent to, which is a fantastic solution, and I love it. You know, whatever's happened, happens. Whatever happens, happened.
What's happened.
What's that line from Tenet? I'll insert the audio.
What's happened.
Back to the minute. Second 46. We are in Woodstock, Illinois, looking north on Main Street. A van approaches coming south toward the town square, which is the same way the big rig entered in planes, trains, and automobiles, which filming that bit was why location manager Bob Hudgens uncredited on the prior film, credited here, knew about Woodstock's town square. Ramis describes in the commentary track,
"We scouted all of southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois looking for the perfect town, and we pulled into Woodstock just the way this van is pulling in. It was the last town we saw, and we looked at this little town square, and we thought, oh, this is perfect. This is what Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania should look like."
That moves the sun. Notable on frame right is a storefront with a clock as part of its sign. Ray Wolf Jewelers, Elgin Watches, which apparently still exists today. It's just out of focus enough that the time on the clock is not clear, but it seems to be 11:25 or 11:35. The hand at 35 looks to be a second hand, but it does not move. Notable on frame left is the Alpine Theater, where Heidi 2, a family classic, is playing. The movie will return here, of course, in minute 43. In Danny Rubin's original script, the film on the marquee is It's a Wonderful Life, but we'll get into that a couple episodes from now. On-screen credit, executive producer C.O. Erickson. Born 17 December 1923 in Kankakee, Illinois, C.O. Doc Erickson is also credited as unit production manager for Groundhog Day, plus he will be seen as Bankguard Herman later in the film. He has 29 producer credits on IMDb, from 1964's Carol for Another Christmas to 2002's Wind Talkers, and 33 production manager credits from 1954's Rear Window to 2001's Antitrust. He died 28th June 2017 in Las Vegas, Nevada from heart complications. For you, I'd turn it into spring. The camera pans right to keep the van centered in the frame. Continuity note, the WPBH logo on the side of the van is close to those side windows again. On-screen credit, story by Danny Rubin. Born in 1957, Rubin has 6 writing credits on IMDb, Groundhog Day, Hear No Evil, SFW, Stork Day, an episode of Little Charmers, and 12 episodes of Our Own Devices. He also appears as Scott, the bass player, in 2003's Freaky Friday. More on Rubin a few episodes from now. Van turns right, toward and past camera. On its left, across the street from camera, is the Tip Top Cafe, but we cannot see its front clearly enough to identify it just yet. This shot, continuing into minute 7, is effectively mapping the square for us later. On-screen credit, screenplay by Danny Rubin and Harold Ramis, but we'll get into Harold Ramis next minute. So when you're feeling lonely, try to understand. Camera rises on a crane once the van is around the turn onto Cass Street. Across the square, visually blocked by some bare trees, is the Pennsylvania Hotel, really the Woodstock Opera House. Before the van gets far enough around the turn that we can see the courthouse, the minute ends. Baby, I can warm.
Knew you were gonna say that.
This has been a production of Lemming Drops Studio. You can find links to more at lemmingdrops.com or join the Facebook group Lemming Drops Studio Tour. Also, you can support all my shows at patreon.com/lemmingdrops.
What is wrong in the end which never comes? Or it comes again and again, lapping, like waves.
Since the Big Bang set everything in motion, everything that happens in this universe has to be the way it is. Particles unfolding the way they're destined to.
How do you sleep at night? You've never seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah, you know Groundhog Day is not a documentary.